We're now recording. Thank you and welcome to Astrology Unplugged. I'm DiClemente, and this is our astrology class that I've been teaching for this is week number 8. We will stop after 10. So you got tonight's class and 2 more classes, and that will be it. You can go back through the past 8 weeks and you can see the entire course, and it'll stay out there on YouTube. We're welcoming our new friend Wendell tonight with his kitty cat. And there goes my kitty cat. Now, I tell you what, I'm going to take my time tonight. I know you've seen a lot of charts, and I'm just going to be very frank with you. The secret to getting any kind of talent in this league is doing charts. You got to do charts. You got to look at charts. You got to look at charts. You got to look at charts and more charts and more charts, and then more charts and more charts. That's it. You're not going to get it from a book. You're not getting it from a theory. You got to see charts that looks like this, one that looks like that, and one that looks like this, and they're weird, and they may stretch your brain, and that's how you learn. Okay, so we have just introduced aspects. I'm going to start tonight, even though this is a 10-week course that's going to last thousands of years on YouTube. I'm going to talk about this virus that's out there just for a brief moment, just so that you'll get an idea, because it's so important. I want you to get an idea where it's coming from. So I'm going to show you the zodiac at the moment, and then we'll look at certain people for just samples of charts. There's the copyright for tonight. Let's see. Let me get this right here. Share, and tonight is week number 8 on starself.com. Good to have you with us. Thank you, YouTubers, for tuning in. Now, let's take a look at the planets at the moment. I know it's confusing. When you're new at this, they look like a bunch of hieroglyphics in different places you can't understand. You have to get used to how fast these planets move. When you get used to that, you see the whole chart in a different way of looking at it. See, Pluto moves very slowly, Saturn pretty slowly. The sun every month, it moves around 1 month, 1 month, 1 month, 1 month, 1 month, 1 month. The moon 1 month to go all the way around. So in your mind, you see how fast they move, and you can appreciate the significance of their placement. Well, Pluto's been sitting here since 2008. And you have to get used to the fact that I'm using the American system, and this means that this is the zodiac out here, and these are the houses. So if you see 19 Virgo sitting here, that means that 0 Virgo is somewhere around here, and the 30th degree of Virgo is somewhere around here. Okay, you don't have to see the degrees like I showed you when you were babies. Okay, and here's the middle of Aries, so the beginning of Taurus is around here, and it ends up at the end of Taurus is somewhere around here. That way you can see the house pieces of pie. These pieces of pie are just about the houses. Okay? Now, in the chart that we see right now, if a baby were born at this moment, or 7:03 tonight when I first started up, the baby would have Virgo rising. Whatever sign is here is your rising sign. It's also the ascendant. It's also your rising sign. That's why they say, in generality, in astrology, the 3 main things, in a way, are your sun sign. The sun would be in Pisces right now. The moon is in Scorpio, and Virgo is rising. So what you do with a rising sign, and the way real astrology is taught, is you take the ruling planet of the house. What is the planet that rules the house? Since Virgo is rising, the planet Mercury, for this baby that's born now, the planet Mercury is the ruler of not only Virgo, but the whole chart. So whatever planet rules the sign that is rising is the ruler of the chart. So in this case, if this child is born right now, an hour ago, this Mercury in Aquarius is the ruler of the chart. because it rules the sign that is rising. If Gemini were rising, it would still be Mercury. Okay? If Leo were rising, it would be the sun. If Libra were rising, it would be Venus. That's why I told you, you have to know what planet rules what sign. Now, there isn't a caveat. There is an exception in astrology. And I don't know where it comes from, but from the old days, there's a rule. The outer planets cannot rule a chart. So if you have Scorpio here, you cannot have Pluto ruling your chart. It's mainly because Pluto is not a personal planet. It's impersonal. So if Scorpio were rising, you would go to the co-ruler, which is Mars. So if you had Scorpio rising, Mars and Capricorn would be your ruling, the planet that ruled the chart. If you have Pisces, Neptune is the ruler of Pisces. Neptune can't rule a chart because it's impersonal. So its co-ruler is Jupiter. So if you have Pisces rising, Jupiter Capricorn would be the ruler of the chart. Likewise, if you had Aquarius rising, you cannot have Uranus. You can't have Uranus, Neptune, or Pluto rule a chart. You can't have Uranus, Neptune, or Pluto rule a chart. So if you had Aquarius rising, you would go to its co-ruler, which is Saturn. Okay? Now, for instance, if you want to know about a person's home life, here's the home life, the fourth house. To find out more about the home life, beside the fact that Mars and Jupiter are there, the sign that is on the cusp, the sign that is on the cusp of the fourth house is Sagittarius. Sagittarius is on the cusp of the fourth house. I'm teaching you specifically how to say these things, because in astrology, you'll hear this language forever, and you need to understand what they're saying and get in sync with how to say it. In other words, Jupiter is the ruler of Sag. So this Jupiter, whenever it gets hit, fourth house things will happen. Not just because it's in the fourth house, but because it rules the sign on the cusp. Look at the third house. There's nothing in it. This is the house of mind, intellectual, the way the brain is. I got a frog in my throat. So you don't sit there and worry about the guy having no mind or having no college or having no career or having no self. You don't worry about a house that is empty. You look to the ruler of the planet that rules the sign that's on the cusp. So if you want to know about the person's mind, you would look to Pluto. Pluto is the ruler of Scorpio. Pluto in Capricorn in the fifth house is the ruler of his third. I'm not going to get much into this because it's very confusing and you got to bring this on at your own speed. And it's kind of a little bit advanced, but you have to understand the theory. You want to look to the person's career. Mercury in Aquarius is the ruler of Gemini. So this Mercury rules this person's 10th house. Now, I'm going to take my time. All right. I want to explain this virus to you, but very quickly because I've written about it and I don't want to spend much time with it. I told you 4 months ago we were in for a worldwide event that could be catastrophic. Okay, and the reason why is this. Pluto is in Capricorn, and that's not enough to do it. Pluto is next to Saturn, but they were together in 1982. They were together in 1941. They were together in 1914. Notice any similarities? 14, 41, 82, and now. When Pluto is in Capricorn, it's awful grave just because Pluto is grave and a Capricorn sign is grave, and then here comes along Saturn. So this is what set up the era. This is not enough to cause this virus. This is not enough. Then along came Jupiter. That's not enough to cause the virus. That's not enough to cause all this. What caused all this stir, the reason it's so serious, is the square to Eris. That's what's doing it. That's what's kept me up nights. When I saw that Pluto and Saturn would conjoin in December, January, both of them square to Eris, and the president has two major planets at 24 degrees of Cancer. This is the story. It's the Eris square to Pluto. And Saturn's going over it, and Jupiter's going over it, and here comes Mars, and the moon's coming in 5 days. In 5 days, we're going to have moon, Mars, Jupiter, Pluto, Saturn. But the crux of it is the Pluto Saturn being squared by Eris. Now, you got to get this in your brain. As soon as I get my throat fixed. The planets are not out there to get you. You're not guilty. They're going to come get you. That's not how it works. Some planets, some combinations are so nasty that it can feel that way. What it really means is, it means it's a very serious time. And when it's a very serious time, it's kind of like your most serious chaperones come and stop the show, stop the baseball, stop the NBA, and they interview you. That's what's going on. And if they find that you're doing really good, responsible work with the planetary evolution and this old crappy statement, loving each other, that's all about. Are you loving each other, aren't you? And when the requirement, when the mandate, when the charge is to love each other, Pluto and Saturn don't mess around. They want to see what's really there. And you can't fake out this guy that just went to jail. You can't fake out all these people being charged with rape. The facts are the facts. And if we were all loving each other, it would be a wonderful time, and these planets would be hailing us with all kind of grace and all kind of goodness and all kind of benefit. But it's not so. Out of that mess, out of the statement I just placed at your prima facie here, you get a virus. Okay? And the virus is going to test our ability to work as a unit, to love each other, or not. And if we don't, because Pluto, his job is to, if you don't get together, is to get rid of you, and Eris's job is very similar. So that's why it's so severe. Now, it could pass in a few days. I don't think so. It could pass in a few months. I don't think so. But it's a turning point now. It's a turning point when not just the USA, all countries have to get it together. I could go on for hours about this, and I'm not going to because I'm teaching week number 8, but it's because mainly the Pluto-Saturn is square to Eris. And they go back and forth real slowly, and they irritate each other, and irritate each other, and they irritate each other. And then comes along Mars, and Mars, doom, 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 doom. Mars is, where's the beef? I want something to happen. I want some action. And that's why Mars is coming on the 19th. And I've been telling you for months, it's coming on the 19th, 20th, 21st. So let's get back into the charts, because this is being permanently recorded as part of the course. Now, let's get into today's chart. All right. So you'll notice today that what's really significant is the sun is near Neptune, 4 degrees away, and the sun has passed over, because the sun is coming this way and it's faster moving than Neptune, which means it's moving through the zodiac faster than Neptune, so it's called the faster moving planet. In the last few days, it's been on that Neptune, and Neptune is all the uncertainty, it's the unsureness, it's the scariness coming out of the fog. It's also great spiritual opportunities. But what else is significant about this chart? 2 more things. The moon is by itself. This is a bucket pattern. Here's your bucket, here's your handle. That means the moon is really important, and the moon in Scorpio especially, and look right now, the moon is exactly opposite Venus. 8 degrees, 8 degrees. The two emotional planets. This is why things are very moody right now and intense. Then you got Mars, Jupiter, Pluto, Saturn, all in Capricorn. This happened in the 90s. This happened around 1989. There was a bunch of planets together in Capricorn, but they weren't Pluto and Saturn. Now, to show you how a chart works, here's the Venus. This is a very good example. This child would be born with Venus in Taurus. Venus is a ruler of Taurus, conventionally. So Venus is well placed. It's known as exalted there, or it's dignified there. Venus is in Taurus. And the reason why it's good in Taurus, remember, Venus rules Libra. Venus also rules Taurus. Well, what you have is, in effect, there are two sides to Venus. The artistic side of Venus, the aesthetics, the beauty of the art and the concerts, that's the Venus and Libra part. The Venus in Taurus is a different dimension of Venus. That's the enjoying the food, enjoying the wine, enjoying the camaraderie. Hey, how you doing there, buddy? And it's just very pleasant. But there are two different levels, and some people think at this time that the new planet Eris, some people are considering, and this will take decades, some people are considering that Eris is the true ruler of Libra. I don't know. And in my book, I wrote about how I believe that the Earth rules Taurus. And now that really threw a curveball. And I knew it when I wrote it, and it opened up everything, because if the Earth rules something, then how are you going to have the Earth in the chart when the Earth is in the middle? But anyhow, you look at Tauruses, and Taurus people are very earthy. Okay. So the whole point is, I'm not going to get into those arguments with you. The whole point is, Venus in Taurus is very down to earth, very pleasant. But look at this chart. This Venus is next to Uranus. Okay? Now, I like the fact that it's 4 degrees away. You don't want things too close. It's like people with this virus. You don't want to stand too close to people in line. Okay? 4 degrees apart. But what happens is this Venus picks up Uranian energy from the conjunction. If this Uranus were over here, it would be picking it up too, but it would be more sporadic. It would be more chaotic. The Venus could not absorb the Uranus smoothly. The conjunction is more positive. The Venus absorbs the Uranus more smoothly. Still, the Venus doesn't want Uranus there. Think about this now. We're going to just look at Venus, Uranus. The Venus doesn't want Uranus there. Venus is the hobbit. He wants to sit at the fire with his pipe. He wants to relax. It's just like Gandalf opening the door and say, "You up for 13 visitors?" "No." "Oh, you got 13 visitors. Shut the door." And then he opens the door and then works the dwarves. And the guy's got total chaos for the next couple of years. That's what Uranus does. So Venus doesn't want Uranus there, but hello, it's there. The good side is the Venus can become too staid, too stable, too unchanging. Don't change I've had the couch there and the chair there for 27 years. Don't change them, okay? Uranus likes to come in every night and change things around. Let's try things. Try this here, try this there. That drives Venus nuts. So even though it's a conjunction, Venus is a little irritated by Uranus being there. But the good thing is Venus is not very big. It's happy with a small crowd. Same 4 guys every night playing poker, drinking the same beer. Uranus brings in this French wine and this wine from Australia and this drink from Japan, and Uranus is off the wall. So as with the conjunction in most combinations, you get both effects. You get the positive, negative. Now, if the Venus and Uranus were trine, 1/3 of the way around the circle, or sextile, 2 signs away, 60 degrees or 120, it's much more positive. Venus is much more able to absorb what Uranus has to offer much more positively when it's a sextile, when it's a trine. When it's hard aspects, they're called hard. Conjunction, opposition, square, especially the square. Then you got real aberration. You got these jagged edges to it. You got somebody who you call them up. You want to go with the crowd tonight? Well, hell no, I don't. Want to go with the crowd tonight? Well, sure. The guy's just never consistent. When you have a Venus Uranus problem, it's very much the symbol. Arroyo tells us it's very much the symbol of the flirt. Venus Uranus is very flirtatious, and I don't just read these things. I see it, and I ask the person. They tell me, "Yeah, I am." So I've checked this out with lots of people, and it very much is the flirt. Okay, and just playful flirtation, you know. So that's a really good example of how a conjunction, the Venus changes totally just by Uranus being there. The Venus can never be on stage by itself, ever. If he's going on stage, Uranus is coming too. And the outer planets rule. The big boys rule the inner guys. Okay? So you saw the positive from Venus, Uranus is it livens up that Venus. The negative side is the Venus can't relax because Uranus is very kind of neurotic and excitable. And just think of Tesla with all the electric lines coming out of his face. That's very Uranian. Okay, let's go back to the chart. This is how you learn, is by taking simple aspects and taking a look. Now look at the Sun Neptune here. Okay, number one, the Sun is not going to be able to be the Sun because it's next to Neptune, but this I'm going to drill home with a chisel on your forehead. When a planet is angular, it's a big, big deal. When a planet is near here, when a planet is near here, when a planet's near here, when a planet's near here. You draw that Sun like this, big, and Neptune, big. You see, this is why I'll talk with Libras sometime. Libras are not your most spiritual people because they're very, very social. They're not interested in yoga or in. I know. Wendell is, and he's a yoga teacher, but traditional Libra is not, because they're interested in what's happening at the party, what's happening with this company, what's happening with your social position. So when I see a Libra who is very spiritual and a very smart side, possibly the smartest, I know their Neptune is strong without looking at the chart. In this case, the guy's Neptune is strong because it's next to the Sun. Other people I've seen, I got a friend who's a Taurus, and Tauruses are not interested in what's happening in space and outer dimensions. And this woman lives barefoot in the snow and lives out in these outer dimensions, talks about the Pleiades all the time. And you look at her chart, Neptune's on the midheaven. So placement of planet on houses, on house cusp, on the angles are critical. They're a huge matter, and nobody knows this. They go, well, I read Libra. It doesn't sound like me. Bunch of junk. You can't blame them. So you can be very Saturnian. Watch this. You can be very Capricornian. No planets in Capricorn. You can be very Capricornian by having planets in Capricorn, by having planets in the 10th house, by having planets with major aspect to Saturn. This is regular, normal astrology. You can be very Martian. You can be very Aries-like because you're born with Mars rising. This is rising for you. This is the left for you. So you might be born with Mars in Leo, but it's rising. Look at the president. The president has Mars and Leo rising. He's very Martian. He says he's going to do something. He does it. I don't like it, but he does it. Okay? Again, your whole planetary effect can shift greatly by what house it's in, what sign it's in, etc. Now, I told you I would do this for the class. Let me show you an example here. This person born now is extremely Neptunian. Why? Because the sun is in Pisces. Okay? And Pisces is ruled by Neptune, and the person has a Neptune conjunction. Well, right away, when you see the Neptune conjunction, you've got a problem. Because here's a seventh house sun. A seventh house sun is a big sun. The sun gets really big. So if the sun is really big, the person wants a lot of limelight. Here they are at the party. The limelight's on me. Joe Blow was seen at the party last night with Susie Smith out at the party, seventh house party. Neptune's there. Neptune don't want to be at a party. Neptune wants you in your ashram. He wants you in your little tent with your flashlight, meditating and not talking. So this person has a born conflict between wanting to be very social, but also very spiritual. And this person probably is able to do it. This person, where their real trouble lies, is they're too Neptunian. They're already a Pisces. Now they got Neptune next to their sun. So what you have with this is not able to say no. People walking on you. People taking advantage of you. These are the things that you know. Remember that? That's type 1, things you know. This person has a tendency to be too nice. Things that blink, which I'm not sure about. I'm going to check them out. Type 3, things that are karmic, much more mysterious. 4th category, things I just don't know. Okay, let's take a look. I want to take a look at, I believe, Wendell's chart. Wendell is a marvelously talented dancer in New York. I just read for him recently, and I was so glad to catch up with him. And he's just a powerhouse. He's got, look at this, he's got the sun right there like we just talked about. He's the Libra sun. Wendell, you got to know something about Libras that I've learned recently. You know, when I wrote the book, I knew it, but it's been driven home lately. These people are very social. They play the social game. It can be very phony. It can be very keep up with the Joneses. It can be very superficial. You can usually see that, but Wendell's not. So when you get a quality Libra, you know, you're getting the higher dimension of it, and you're getting the higher dimension not because of the Libra. You're getting the higher dimension of Wendell because the Pluto's next to it. Okay? 9 degrees away is Saturn, 3 degrees away is Pluto. So, with his sun next to Pluto, Wendell's very scorpionic. So he can't stand superficiality, as a matter of fact. If he runs into a typical Libra who's, you know, hi, how you doing? Hi, how are you? Who else is at the party? He can't stand it. He can't stand it. And because of that, and because of the rest of his chart, he's got an inner drive to be real. This guy has a pain in the ass pounding that's always on him to be real. He's never told me that, but I just know it. Because the inner pressure is so strong and it's mixed in with the past lifetime, etc. So when you got the sun, Pluto's over there, and the sun wants to be a Libra sun, doesn't it? It's in the 7th house. It's a very Libra sun. And remember, Pluto comes over, so you have to start thinking about what this told us about the 7th and 8th signs. Remember, the seventh sign of Libra, we meet people and we shake hands. Unless they got the virus, you don't shake their hand. You go, hey, you shake hands. Nice to meet you. Pluto doesn't want a nice to meet you. Pluto wants intimacy, very intense, loyal intimacy. So, what you have in effect in Wendell's chart by having the sun on the seventh house next to Pluto, angular, both of them, is you've got a person who's he's really driven to have successful relationships and of all kinds. And I can guarantee you, he's getting to the age now. I can guarantee you with Wendell, he's learning. And as I wrote the warning in this book, I said, if you got too much Libra Scorpio, then you could fall apart if the relationship starts to wobble. You can just totally fall apart. Oh, because you put so much effort making sure it works. And I'm sure he's getting to the age now where he's more lenient about it. He's more willing to let it go if it's not working out for him, and all to his best. But there's tremendous pressure. There's overpressure to have a successful relationship because the zodiac is tilted too much in those two areas, those two houses, those two signs. So we know that he's not could be obsessive. We know that he's got very strong social skills, and he does teach in New York City, teaching dance and yoga, I believe. Okay, now take a look at his bucket pattern. Look at this bucket pattern. I told you for right now, ignore Eris, and Eris is the same degree as his moon. So he really would benefit by reading a book about Eris. Eris is all about fairness. It's about the rise of the feminine. It's the rise of we will have justice no matter what. Nobody will be left behind. Eris is a butt kicker. So Wendell cannot ignore Eris. He's got a massive amount of Eris in his chart. So it will behoove him a lot to think about it. But for now, since it's grayed out, I want to ignore it and ignore Chiron and ignore the North Node and just show you how the bucket is here and the moon is by itself. Therefore, Wendell is not a typical Libra because Libras are not typically warm and fuzzy. They're usually very nice. They're very pleasant. Yes. But when the moon is there, he becomes very Cancerian. Yes, it's in Aries. Yes, Aries is rising. Yes, Mars in Virgo is the ruler of his chart. Mars rules Virgo. I'm sorry. Yeah, this is right. Mars rules Aries. Mars is in Virgo. Mars in Virgo rules his chart. But this took me 30 some years to learn, and it finally clicked on me one day. 30 some years. I always would think, Wendell, oh, he's moon in Aries. Oh, he's moon in Aries. Oh, he's moon in Aries. But I learned later on, it took me a while, and I went, wow, he's very lunar. Forget what sign it's in. He's very lunar just because the moon is there. He's very solar. He's very lunar. He's very Mercurian. He's very Plutonian, just because these three planets are very close to the angle. So when you're very Cancerian and you're very Aryan, we have to stop and think now. He gets the Cancer qualities because the moon rules Cancer. And I told you Libra is not soothing and it's not motherly and it's not nurturing, but Wendell is. And if Wendell backs up from being nurturing, it's not because of that, it's because the Venus and Mars are both in Virgo. And Virgo is, well, I'm going to teach you how to fish, but I'm not going to fish for you. Okay? But he's very, very sympathetic and has a lot of feelings that most Libras don't have because the moon is so strongly placed. So you have to look at this. The difficulty with the moon in Aries is this. The moon in Aries is very aggressive. It's very assertive. It's very dynamic, outward, extroverted. The moon itself is very introverted. So what I would say to Wendell, and I think this could be one of the top things I could ever tell him, I don't think I did tell him, you're going to be very moody because of this, and there's no way around it. You're going to have a lot of moodiness because the moon is accentuated. The moon is moodiness. But you got the Venus and Mars over there in Virgo. They won't have anything to do with moodiness. No, knock it down, nail it down, state your case and get moving. Virgo's very tough. If you are in fact moodiness or you have internal moodiness that doesn't show, just let it be. Just let it be. If you sway from one emotion to the other, consider it a God-sent trait and let it be. But the Virgo's going to want to tell you that it's a weakness. The Virgos want to treat you like it's an exception, like something's wrong, but nothing's wrong because Virgos don't do well with emotion. Okay? Those of you who keep texting me, I don't have the time to read. I'm sorry. Okay. Does that make sense to you, Wendell? Does it? Good. Okay. And what you do here is you gain. You are moon in Aries when you want to be. You are lunar when you want to be. You're both. But don't let the Virgo con you. Don't let the Sun Pluto con you either. Because what are the two signs that can't stand weakness is Scorpio, Pluto, and Virgo. So don't let them con you into thinking you're weak. Sometimes you just let have your feelings out. You need to have a cry, whatever it is. So be it, that's it. That's why natural placements of planets can be existentially difficult because they just have natures that rub each other. Okay, so we see the tremendous talent that Chiron picks up from being opposite Jupiter and Uranus in Sag. That's why he's such a fabulous dancer. You got to see him on YouTube. Wow. But the Venus and Mars in the sixth house, in the early sixth house. So I told you planets are stronger when they're the early part of the house. This is the Virgo house, and here's Venus and Mars in Virgo. So this means that Wendell's very good at teaching you. Don't put your foot here. Extend that muscle. You're going to land on the wrong one. He's going to teach you technique about dancing that you don't understand. He's going to show you things you don't even believe, but he's going to go beyond. He's going to, when you watch him, you're going to see the technique, but you're going to see that he's beyond just technique because he's incorporated the beauty of the sun in Libra. He's incorporated the feelings of the moon. So he's not just the technique, he's the technique plus the beauty of the movement. This is where this comes from. I didn't say this was easy. I'm sure he has to work real hard at it. And I've seen him dance before, and he's got muscles that are very well toned, which is, like Michael Jackson. To the YouTubers, I'm seeing messages from people because we can text each other and they don't show up on YouTube. Really an excellent chart, really excellent. Now, I want to give you an inkling. I want to give you an inkling here of something. Now, I'm not going to get into this much. I'm just going to introduce little things. Right now, Neptune is here. In his lifetime, Neptune, let's see, let me get this straight now. Neptune started here. It takes 164 years to go all the way around. 164 years. So in his lifetime, he's only what? He's just nearing 40. Okay. Neptune has gone from here to here. Okay? Neptune is now around 18. Several years ago, a couple years ago, 2 to 3 years ago, Neptune was at 11 and 12, right opposite that. So Neptune was at 11 and 12 by transit. It was opposite to Venus and Mars. So what happened a couple years ago, he may have been aware of it, maybe not. He's pretty darn aware, he probably was. Neptune came to town and took over his Venus and Mars, which were so mechanical and robotic and stiff in Virgo. And Neptune came by, and Neptune throws that stuff out the window. You're going to go with the flow. I don't care about your technique. You're going to go with the flow. So I knew, because I read years ago for Wendell and I read recently, I knew that he had been through the Neptune time. I knew that his Venus and Mars had been Neptunized. And Neptune is the opposite of what Virgo is. Virgo is, I got the rules, I know what to do, I put my hand there, I know what to do. Neptune is the fluid movements of watching Marcel Marceau, just the beauty of the fluidity. Well, the only way Neptune can be successful during a transit like that is surrender. So I'll guarantee you, 2 3 years ago, Wendell got into surrender, just going with the flow. His Virgo didn't like it. His Virgo wanted to say, well, move that muscle a quarter of an inch and do this and put your hand up here. But he knew, because Neptune is wisdom and Neptune is intuition, he knew it was time to do that. So what we're seeing now with Wendell is a blend. We're seeing him blend the technical part of Virgo with the go with the flow with Neptune. And it takes years, and usually you advance and make your move forward when the planet's passed. When it's right on you, it's usually too confusing, too strong. And after it moves on a little bit is usually when you can work with it. So I just wanted to introduce to you a little bit about transits. Okay? And you can spend years talking about transits. It's my specialty. I don't know what the reason is. I've just focused on transits for many, many years. But does that make sense, Wendell? Yeah. Okay, good. All right, I'm going to look at some other charts because we benefit by seeing other charts. I was looking at the chart, which is phenomenal, of Thomas Jefferson. Let me show you him. He was just an outstanding chart. Well, you knew from all the things he did, you knew he had to have an outstanding chart. Okay, he's in Aries, but he wasn't a small-minded, just look at me Aries. So what does that tell you? Remember, these are back in the days when there was no Pluto, there was no Neptune, there was no Chiron, there was no Uranus. These guys were astrologers. Jefferson, Franklin, lots of them were. But you pick up phenomenal ability from aspects to the outer planets. That's where they come from. You're not going to become an exciting quarterback, an exciting dancer, a phenomenal general without the power of the outer planets. They got to find expression somehow. So we know in Jefferson, even though he died well before these planets were found, he had to have a strong Uranus, Neptune, Pluto. What's he known as? Jack of all trades, Renaissance man, philosopher, doer, writer, brilliant, genius. That's the planet Uranus. We know it's powerful. The whole country's based on him. Pluto. We know he's broad with broad love for fellow mankind. So he's got to have a strong Neptune. And he's got the Aries sun in there doing it. So watch and see. Phenomenal chart. Just astounding chart. Uranus is rising. 27. It's 3 degrees away from the ascendant. Uranus is in Capricorn of all places. That's why he was so able to do so many different things. So even though Aquarius is rising and Uranus is there, the ruler of the chart is not Uranus, it's Saturn. And Saturn is in Leo. And Saturn was known at those times as the outermost planet. This is the statesman, the Saturn in Leo. Okay. We know the Uranus is strong because it's on the first house, guys. We know the Pluto is strong because it's close to the midheaven. And you got to always wonder when you have these kind of things. You got to wonder about the birth time. 1:53 in the morning in Shadwell, Virginia. This midheaven moves back and forth according to the birth time. So that midheaven could be over here. We don't know exactly. And that's why a lot of astrologers spend a lot of time with what is called chart rectification, which is working backward from Mr. Jefferson's experiences and events in his life and trying to perfect backward when he was really born. Okay? So we know that Pluto is really astoundingly strong. The Uranus is astoundingly strong. And the Neptune makes a trine to Pluto. Look at Neptune, right on the same degree as Chiron. They didn't know about Chiron until 1977. But Neptune was powerful. It was in the house of service. It's the planet of include everybody. It's a loving planet in a sign of Cancer. And it trines right to Pluto. So he gets great, great benefit from the Neptune trine to Pluto. His moon is very strong in the sign of Aries. Aries was not known until 2005, 2006. But the moon up there in the 10th house is very strong in Sag because it's fun-loving. And moreover, what I like about the moon in Sag is this. Charts can become bedeviled. They can become laden. They can be heavily weighted down by responsibility and all this heavy stuff of Pluto and Saturn. When you have a moon in Sag, it wants to have fun. It makes time for itself to have fun. And that's a big deal. Fun means you're getting free of all the toils and all the chains so you can express yourself. And don't you think that the Declaration is awful Sagittarian? Wow. That document is very Sagittarian. And he could do it. So it does bring about some negative qualities of moon and Sag, but I like most of the time when I see it, especially with a sign like Cancer. You can save an entire chart. Capricorn, moon and Sag can really, really help. Let's go looking at his aspects. So we see that Pluto is strong, the Neptune is strong, the Uranus is strong, the Sun is trine to 22. You take this degree of 22, it's almost 23. You go over to the next fire sign, 23 degrees, and you see that this Sun is trine to Mars and it's trine to Saturn. It's trine to Mars and Saturn. Well, Mars and Saturn, the conjunction of Mars and Saturn, even though these are 11 degrees apart, is about stamina and military and being tough and going the final mile. It gives you stamina and strength. So the Sun never weakens when it's trying to Saturn and Mars in such fire sign as Leo. So remember, this is something that you'll learn. Fiery signs are, yes, they are dynamic. And the problem with astrology books, I don't know if you'll run into that in this book or not. The problem with astrology books is they'll overemphasize on fire, that they're dynamic and they're wild and they're restless and all. But what they fail to do until later books, fire signs are spirited. They're spirited. They're enthusiastic. You got great spirit. So you can see this working with Jefferson. Got this huge, beautiful monument right there in the middle of D.C. Look what he did. So it's a fabulous chart. And what will blow your mind is take a guy like him and go back through his history and put the outer planets on the outer circle and start moving them. Put them where they were when he wrote the Declaration. Put him where they were when he died. Put him where they were when you suspected his affairs with his slave. All these different sides to this guy. This guy had many, many different sides. And that comes about from being very Sagittarian and also from being very Aquarian. So you learn a lot about your chart by going through it and seeing what happened. Just use the major points. What happened when this big body came over this sensitive point here? What happened when this big body came over this opposite that sensitive point? That's when things happen, because that's when you say, what came over me? I don't know what got into him. Okay, let's go back. We're focusing on houses and aspects. This Neptune Chiron is extremely powerful and talented, but I'm not going to confuse you with Chiron at the moment. The sun is square to Uranus. Okay, look at that. The sun is square to Uranus. Sun is 23 almost. Uranus is 27. It's 4 degrees. This is one of the reasons, sun square to Uranus. This is one of the reasons that he was known as a jack of all trades, as a Renaissance man, because if there's any planet that is a Renaissance planet, it is what? It's Uranus. Uranus is the Renaissance planet. Now, I can guarantee you, since the square is there, what did I tell you? Of the 5 major aspects, the conjunction, the square, the opposition, the sextile, and the trine, of the 5 major aspects, which are called Ptolemaic, P-T-O-L-E-M-I-C, Ptolemaic, of the 5 major aspects, the square is the most troublesome. Sometimes the opposition. Well, he's got his main planet, the sun, square to Uranus. Okay, now the sun is in Aries, and the sun is the sun. So it's kind of like having this fireball on stage with this kind of crazy energizing planet next to it. So it gets excited by Uranus, but it's not like Uranus sitting next to a moon in Pisces. It's not like Uranus sitting next to a Venus in Cancer. It's not disruptive. I guarantee you that this guy drove people nuts. He said he's going to talk about A today, and he talks about B. He's going to talk about B today, he talks about double Z. This is why people who are Uranian are unpredictable. Look at Bob Dylan. Look at Neil Young. These people have strong Uranuses. And what that means is, what is it that Gandhi had a strong Uranus. What is it he said? He prepared for months and months to have hundreds of thousands of visitors to come and hear him speak in his little tent with his wife. Hundreds of thousands of people come. They come from all over India, hundreds of thousands. And they're outside, and he tells his wife, I'm not going to talk. She said, you're what? She says, I'm not talking. She said, oh, you did all this. He said, my dedication is to truth. It is not to consistency. He said his dedication was to truth, not consistency. So you've read the stories yourself about the gurus and the swamis being unpredictable. They walk up and they slap you in the head. Then they give you a kiss. Uranus, those are Uranian energies that come out of nowhere. They're They're the moment's unpredictability. So when Gandhi did that, he wasn't being mean to people. He just didn't feel like it. He's not going to get trapped in some mental construct of how he should be, how he's supposed to act. So I can guarantee you that sometimes Jefferson just did things that people said, well, he's not coming out. I don't know why. Those are signs of geniuses. And all major geniuses I've seen that have a lot of Uranus, they all have that trait, that wild, unpredictable, unruly, untamable trait. So you can start to see what we're doing in astrology is constantly just mixing these energies together. We're just mixing them together. And what's going on in the world right now is the Pluto-Saturn squared Eris, and here comes Mars. Abraham Lincoln. Phenomenal chart. Aquarian. You may not know this unless you read his life story, but Lincoln saved this country because he was so idealistic, period. He suffered greatly. He lost children. He had migraines every night. He had screwed up so bad with his generals. He lost tens of thousands of troops. He was so guilt-ridden by all this, but he kept the country together because of his oath to keep the country together. That's how strong Aquarian idealism can be. And you know what Aquarius is. Lesson 1. Fixed air. Fixed air. And what suspends itself above the United States all these years, what suspends itself in the ethers, is the Gettysburg Address. It was truly an example of him being Aquarian and the high ideals that were put forth in that address. Okay, we got him born at 6:57 in the morning, Hodgenville, Kentucky. Hodgenville, February 12th, 1809. The 3 beautiful planets in Pisces. He was a very, very loving man. By the way, if you didn't know this, he had a real high-pitched voice. And from what I understand about reading about him, he was like, you don't mess with this guy. He would just, he wouldn't overpower you. He would just out-clever you. He was a very clever lawyer. The sun is very strong on the ascendant. Look at this, 2308, 2327. When this planet gets closer and closer to that, it's like exponentially stronger each degree that it gets closer. That's why I keep telling you that cusp is everything. This guy had a powerful presence. Anything in the first house gets drawn big, but this guy's sun is about this big. Dynamic. Mercury's big. Look at the Mercury next to Pluto. Okay, typically he's Mercury in Pisces. Mercury in Pisces is what? I've got a mind that's very intuitive. It's kind of hard to express myself. I think about everybody, but I'm next to Pluto. Okay, now the brain gets stronger, smarter, psychologist, the manipulator, politician. So he's only 3 degrees away. So this is like having Mercury in Scorpio. So he has Mercury in Scorpio and Mercury in Pisces at the same time. This is how the conjunction works. Now, this is a wonderful sign here. Very rare. When you combine Saturn and Neptune, it's through years of experience, is a very difficult combination to blend. And when you read Anna Arroyo's book about the combination of planets, Saturn and Neptune are very, very tough. And in the 50s, when a lot of us were born, Saturn and Neptune were together. So I have it together also. The reason it's so hard to talk about is Saturn is so much about down to earth, fixedness. Neptune is opposite, spacey. So when they're conjunct, what do? Now they're really wonderful when they're trine, and they're really wonderful when they're sextile, because it shows you got the ability to be earthy, you got the ability to be unearthly, and you kind of know when to do it naturally. When you have the conjunction, it's just plain confounding. The conjunction shows us that he had the ability to be very idealistic. He also had the ability to fire his general McClellan and put in Grant. He finally faced the fact that he was picking the wrong generals and getting a lot of people killed. And his problem was he was too loyal to McClellan, who didn't want to fight. And tens of thousands of people died because McClellan didn't want to fight, and Lincoln was over dedicated. That's the problem that comes in with a fixed sign. Fixed signs, it's the opposite of their fixedness. They can be over dedicated. I'm glued to you, I'm with you, I'm behind you, but sometimes they got to just say, I'm not. So the Saturn and Neptune was really, really strong in his chart. He also knew when he was going to die. Right when the war ended, he died like 5 days later. He intuited that was it. And I would imagine his Chiron was involved, because Chiron is the planet that gives us our life's mission, our hero's journey. And I think that when he solved the war, he kept the Union together, which was the whole thing. I think that he knew his mission was over, and he was tired. His wife was sick. He had lost several children. He was tired. And he maybe you don't know this, but he had tons of people from the very beginning trying to stab him in the back. He did almost all this alone. He kept the country together by himself. He was that powerful. You got to have a strong chart to do that. So that's why he's on our penny. Look at the power ninth house. The ninth house is the house. Now we're reading, what does a planet do in a house? The ninth house is your philosophy. Overall, it's your educational experience. And Uranus is always about somebody who learned in a weird way, in a strange town. What did he do? He grew up in a log cabin and used a little chalkboard. And just shows his humble beginnings. The Mars in Libra, he did become a lawyer. Okay, became strong. Saturn near the top of the chart. He sure benefited by having Scorpio at the top. I mean, to handle a country that's splitting in two, he had Pluto there saying, no, we're not going to split in two. And look what he went through because of it. And his Pluto in Pisces is the ruler of his midheaven. Do you see that? Pluto in Pisces is very strong, rules his midheaven. So therefore, his Pluto rules his whole 10th house. So that's why he was so scorpionic in his way. It would be very interesting to put the outer planets around the circle when he made his address, the Gettysburg Address. It's also interesting to put the planets there the night he was shot. See, astrologers, you have to look for everything. So, this is why you can't just study the signs. You can't just study the houses. You can't just study the aspects. You're constantly a little bit about aspects, a little bit about signs, a little bit about this. You're constantly building. They're like a Lego tower that keeps building one layer at a time. You're just going to learn bits and pieces that way. It's just how it is. And you're not going to get anywhere unless you get a little basis. If I ask you, what's the difference between Mars and Libra and Mars and Scorpio? You got to have an inkling anyway. That's what's so good about the Arroyo book. Remember, Arroyo gets your head out of the old school. The old school was this. You'll still hear this. Oh, he had Mars in the eighth house. He's going to die a violent death at 2 o'clock. Oh, yeah, well, this guy had Saturn in the 11th. That means some old man's going to smack him. In the old school, they equated all the planetary placements with cement experiences, concrete experiences. Arroyo came along and softened that with wisdom. And he went back to the old books and he rewrote it and showed what matters is these planets are combining. And your ability to express and to translate planets and signs and aspects that combine is based upon your intuitive ability, yes. But it's based on how well do you know what a hammer does. Sometimes my hammer, the best part of the hammer is the butt of it. I want to use that for something. You know, my pliers are really good for this, but maybe sometimes I want to use the pliers for that. So it's the same with astrology. That's why there are so many sides to the sign of Cancer. You could talk forever about Cancer. It's all based on 2 or 3 seeds, but it can manifest in so many ways. There are so many sides to the planet Neptune. That's why the more you read about it, get to know it. Don't get worried if you're feeling like, I'm not getting it. Don't worry about it. Keep reading about it. Keep reading about it. And when you start to translate, and you will start translating, you're going to feel real stupid because it's really difficult. Just get an inkling. Get an inkling. And don't be real quick. There's nothing worse than translating something and the client goes, nah. You go, the client goes, nah. There's nothing worse than that feeling. Well, what's going to find out is that years after years after years is you're right and they're wrong, or you're right and they don't want to tell you. Okay, usually people will admit it. But don't be afraid of being wrong. But you're going to be wrong if you think there's the answer. I may have somebody who has a strong Uranus on something. And I say, wow, you're really independent, aren't you? No. And I look at the chart and I see a bunch of Cancer, and I see stuff in the 4th house, and I see a strong Saturn, and I see what's weighing that person down, what's altering that independence that's shown by Uranus. But then I'll go to a different side of Uranus. I'll say, boy, you're really like sci-fi, don't you? Oh, yeah, I love it. Or other parts of Uranus where you're really idealistic. Oh, yeah, I'm writing poetry all the time, and yeah, I got all kind of newsletters I write, but they're not adventurous. So sometimes a planet or an entity has a side to it that's not really manifesting so well, but other sides of it are. Because take a look, we're all trying to live with these energies. Look what I did in Wendell's chart. Look at his moon. His moon's trying to keep everybody happy, and his moon's trying to basically keep himself happy emotionally. That's why when you start to translate, don't worry about it. Also, don't even attempt to translate for anybody in your early days. You're not ready. You can do them harm. People, you tell them, you study for 3 years, you tell them 99 good things, you tell them one lukewarm thing, and they'll remember one evil thing you said. You got to be very careful how you talk to people because you're sitting there looking in the magic 8-ball and they can't see it. And they're in the palm of your hand. They're vulnerable and your responsibility has to rise. So you're not ready for it. You can get a friend. The best thing in astrology is learn with a friend, and then you can say, what do you think this means? What do you think this means? How do you think this book came along? these two women studied together. They had a rapport. They didn't just write the book. I guarantee you they taught each other a tremendous amount, especially if you have a rapport. So when you read a book that doesn't jive with you, get rid of it. When you read a book that's too rigid, either put a lot of salt on it or get rid of it. When you read a book that's too vague, get rid of it. When you get the right ones and they're well documented, you'll start to understand the different sides of things. And then the fun part of astrology is blending all this stuff. Now, I got to my stage after about 20 or 30 years, I just started to know. But I had tried and tried and tried and tried and tried and tried, had a radio show and I tried. I wasn't shy about it. I wasn't going to stay in the cave till I knew. And all of a sudden one day I just started to know. No, that's not it. That's not it. It's this. It's an ability that I got from somewhere. I'm grateful. So that's not your job now. Your job now, get acquainted with the planets. You're not wasting time to go over the signs. Look at chart after chart after chart. Now, let's see who else we have here. Carolyn's not here, is she? Carolyn says she was coming later to get hers read. Susan, you're new to us? Oh, you're on an iPhone. I can't hear you. You got yourself muted. I don't know why it's muted, but it is. I can't hear you. I'm sorry. Okay, let's just, maybe you can work on that. Peggy, you got a question?
Yeah.
Let's take a look at Peggy's chart.
Okay.
We need to see chart after chart after chart. I'm boring my girlfriend to death. She's falling asleep on me. I told her something that I'm just going to hand her the phone and say, you do the show. She goes, no, I'm not. Oh, yeah, you are. Okay. All right. Peggy's chart. Okay, now let's get back and share this with you. So what do we see? 4 planets in the 9th house, 2 planets in the 10th house, 2 planets, the old Saturn, Neptune, which is like 1951, 53. That's correct. The ruler of the chart is the planet that rules the sign. It's not Pluto normally. What happened?
I don't know.
One of our cats just screamed.
I don't know where they are.
Sound like they're caught in the chair, but nobody moved.
They're not caught in the chair.
Maybe it was a dream. Mars is the ruler here because Pluto can't rule the chart. So Mars at the midheaven. Mars in Leo is the ruler. So don't let Peggy fool you. She looks like a very disciplined, hardworking Virgo, and that means she follows the rules, etc. Don't let that fool you with the Scorpio rising. She's going to go do what she wants to do, and that Mars is next to Pluto. That means when Mars is next to Pluto, that means that when she wants to go do something, she's going to do it. Remember, the fight with Virgos is always do what you should. Well, I want to do what I want to do, but do what you should. But I want to do what I want to do. Does it make any sense, Peggy?
Yeah, I just keep my mouth shut about what I'm doing.
That's very typical Virgo. Do you think the Leo likes the fact that you keep your mouth shut?
No.
No, it doesn't. Now, I'm not going to tell you to get on the corner with a Bible. You do what you want, but that's up to you, and that's your karmic issue. But the Mars in Leo is the leader of the chart. And you got 4 planets in Leo, and they're trying to drag this Virgo out, and they put you on stage, and then Virgo doesn't talk. I keep putting her on stage, she goes back. Put her on stage. She comes back.
No, I'm good on stage.
Okay, so you are good.
Fun.
Okay.
It's fun.
Well, very good. But that's really a discrepancy. And what you're finding out is you are not in any way your sun sign, people. You aren't your sun sign. Get that out of your head. Thank God we have sun signs, because that's what kept it alive all these years. This over-identification. See my Capricorn badge? Look at it. That's what kept it alive. But you're not. Let's just take a look at just to show you, let's take a look at how Peggy's chart is. I told you everybody's got 4 or 5 signs real strong. Okay. If I can get it to come on the screen. All right. All right. Peggy is obviously a Virgo. She's obviously got a tremendous amount of Leo. Okay. She's got a lot of Aries from the Mars. She's got a lot of Scorpio here. Okay. She's got Scorpio rising. So she definitely has Scorpio and she has Aries. She's a Virgo with Leo, Scorpio, Aries. What else does she have? She's got a little bit of Jupiter. Those are your main ones. This one is kind of hard to tell because they kind of cancel each other out. You are mainly Scorpionic, Aries, Scorpio, Plutonian, and Virgo. Okay? So when you look at a chart, don't worry about houses that are empty. Concern yourself with the angles. Okay, what do we have here? We have a Uranus opposite Chiron, which I told you everybody had for 37 years, from 1952 to 1989. Everybody has this. This is all about alternative medicine, alternative ways of living, looking into alternative ways. The whole room is just yawning all around me.
Not me.
The cats, the people, everything. I have to stop yawning. But the T-square, Uranus is 21, 15. The T-square is to Neptune. Okay? Here's the fight. The Chiron opposite Uranus, 21, 22, 15. Where does that energy get expressed to? It goes to the Neptune. It also goes to Saturn, but it also goes to Neptune. And the Neptune is the reason why she said, I just keep my mouth shut. It's not the Virgo, it's the Neptune that keeps the mouth shut. Why? Because the Neptune says, oh, we don't want big mouths around here. We don't want anybody arrogant, popping off, showing off here. We don't like that stuff. It's also a Virgo theme. So we got too much of that going on. And there's not enough, I would suspect, that's allowing these powerful Leo energies to come out. Look at this. Where's Uranus right now? Uranus right now is at 4 degrees of Taurus. Uranus is right here, 4 degrees of Taurus. It's been there about 2 years now. And it's starting to square all these Leo planets. See that? Uranus is here. And over the next, remember, Uranus takes 7 years to go through a sign. So Uranus is going to spend the next 3 or 4 years going through 8 degrees, 18, 23, 24. As Uranus goes through those degrees, it's going to square these planets. And these planets are not going to feel like staying at home anymore. These planets are going to want to come to life. And these are 9th house planets. So since Uranus is the planet of the internet, see what I mean? Planets have different sides. Since Uranus is the planet of the internet, and the 9th house is about long distance communication, you can pretty well bet that Peggy is going to, through the next 3 or 4 years, get herself very active with people over the internet, coming out of the 6th house. The 6th house is where you learn new job skills. So she's going to start working with people at long distances, maybe even traveling across the ocean. That's the ninth house. Traveling to meet with them, to educate them, and probably learning together. So what does that mean to you, Peggy?
Well, for the last couple of years, I retired and I finally got a chance to really delve into alternative healing on the internet. And I've been having a lot of issues and I've been healing myself. The doctors say, oh, we can't help you, here, take a pill. So I've been doing that, and I've been watching a lot of webinars on that and sharing that with other people lightly, not heavy. And I just, if the opportunity comes up, I talk to people, and if they're receptive, then I hope that the information helps them.
Well, that's very Virgoan, and Uranus, as it gets closer and it starts igniting, it brings to life those 4 planets. You're going to want to take more of a lead. You're going to want to form things and move on, being idealistic. Don't be surprised if it also takes a great tint towards the environment.
Oh, yeah.
Aquarian planets are maniacs about the environment, etc. Okay, well, I've beaten everybody to death pretty good tonight. Wendell hung in there pretty good. Doc hung pretty good with us. What's our message tonight, Doc? Life filled with love, peace, and joy. Well, that's a very good way to end things tonight. Look, you people are to be commended. Thank you. You've been through 8 weeks of this. We're going to spend the next 2 weeks. Next week, we're going to spend similar, looking at natal charts. Then as we get to week 10, I'm going to start bringing into you what the transits do. I could talk forever, so I got to really slow down. The real key is start looking at natal charts, and you're going to see a lot of stuff on there that blinks. I got a sense of what this means, but it blinks. I'm not sure. Read for people near you. Read for people that won't club you when you're wrong. Okay? Say, does this make sense? Here's what I'm getting. And work with them. Don't be afraid to talk about it. Say, I don't know, but this is the inkling I'm getting. In the week 10, we will start to bring in other parts of astrology. I'm not going to go way out on you because it goes way, way out, all the things you can do. But anyhow, I wish you luck. Congratulations to you for sticking with it. Keep reading. Welcome, Wendell. Please come back. Please all go home with your masks on and put masks on your ears so you don't have to hear all this stuff. I like how Erica did that. Okay. Love y'all, and thanks to YouTubers. Please join us again next week, 8 o'clock. Not the Exquisite Zodiac, but Astrology Unplugged will tell you the time. If you type that into Google, it'll tell you how the link is. And read, yes. You definitely want to read this book because it's the main center of the chart. Okay, good night, everybody. Thank you.